Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, brothers, and sisters. Welcome back to the 6th round of the AFVRC, the Armed Forces Virtual Racing Championship. I am so glad to be back. Look forward to these every single week, and we have yet to be disappointed. And we've got quite a grid ahead of us as well. As you can see from the images, we are at the wonderful Oulton Park. We take on its international variant, the longest of the Cheshire's finest layouts. My name is Chris Buxton. I'll be one of your commentators throughout this evening's charade. And joining me is the one and only, the godly man from Scotland. It is John Munro. Glad to have you back with us, John.
Introductions get more dramatic every single week, and I love it. It's great to be here. Always love this on a Tuesday night. It's becoming a regular fixture of the week, and it's just something I look forward to. And as you say, this season, it's yet to fail to deliver. It's always been exciting. It's always been great. And Oulton Park, we all love Oulton Park, don't we? Sunshine out, lots of fast corners, lots of good motorsport, and lots of places where you can get things wrong as well, which always adds a little bit of spice for us watching. Not so good necessarily for the drivers. But yeah, we're in for a treat tonight, and I think it's going to be a very technical and challenging race, or two races around here.
Absolutely. So we were at Brands Hatch indeed last time out, one of the shortest, if not the shortest circuit on the entire calendar, and we head to a very much polar opposite. We were looking at just under 1 minute 40 or there or thereabouts per lap from the practice sessions, and the times were so close between each car, which is incredible considering the lap time here. So very much looking forward to how the races unfold. The championship standings very, very much different from last time out. Luca Pino led the way coming into Brands Hatch. He wasn't with us last time out, and that has demoted him right the way down to 5th place. Taking that top spot is now Chris Boland, who won the first race last time out at Brands. He leads the way by, I can say a comparatively comfortable gap, but that gap can change in the blink of an eye, that much we know. We do also have drop scores throughout the course of the season to bear in mind. The 4 lowest scores over the entire season are dropped, so that is going to add some spice towards the tail end of the season. Peter Finch in his Aston Martin is in 2nd place, with Adam Barron in 3rd. Fairly narrow gap between Peter and Adam. Peter Plastow in 4th with Loco Pino, as mentioned, down into 5th. Steve Ward in 6th. Stuart Eatock in 7th position. Stuart McFadden, again, wasn't with us at Brands Hatch, so essentially he's had 2 rounds now where he hasn't been present. He's won everything else that he's been with us, and he is with us tonight. Interestingly, though, he was not top of the times in practice, so maybe the McLaren is not going to be all-conquering here that we've seen in the past. Darren Barris in 9th, with James King, the king of BMWs, rounding out the top 10. John, as you have raced here in the past, talk us through a lap of this fantastic flowing circuit.
It's a tricky one. There's a lot of commitment-based corners. I know that's something I always talk about and bang on about. Commitment-based corners. Everything sounds like commitment-based corners, but it really is the case when it comes to Oulton Park. You've got to time everything well, plenty of late apexes, and there's so many big, long runs off of slow corners. If you're in a low-powered car, these GT4s, relatively, you could argue they're low-powered. I mean, it's not quite a touring car in that sense. It's slightly more weighted towards power over cornering ability, but they're still very, very important in terms of getting the power down early out of the corners. And around here, it's all about that balance. It's all about being as close to the limit as possible, keeping your minimum speed up, and just making sure you nail those exits. The thing about Oulton Park as well, there's so many dangerous spots. So Island Bend, for example, very fast left-hander at turn 4. So easy to get that one wrong. If you just run slightly wide, if you get a little bit of oversteer on entry, or just, push that little bit too hard to get a bit of understeer on exit, you're heading for a big crash and the wall on the entrance to Shell Oil's corner. So that's going to be interesting. Shell Oil's is a banked hairpin. You've then got the couple of chicanes. You've got Britain's, and then the run down hilltop towards Knickerbrook. And that is definitely going to be one of the main overtaking spots today. You often see people sending it down the inside into the chicane, and then they will quite often run side by side for all 3 parts of that through the Knickerbrook complex. And basically what it does is it bunches up the pack, it brings in everyone behind, and it just causes drama. So I can guarantee you we're going to see plenty of that tonight. There's a shot now, you can see the beautiful view from the Shell Oil's corner. And it's also, a track that you need rhythm in, Chris. You need to basically find your zone, find your flow, be able to just keep on banging in the laps. If you just slightly mess up 1 or 2 laps in a row, it's very, very difficult to find that rhythm again. A good example of that being turn 1, Old Hall. Very, very easy corner to get wrong. And once you start getting it wrong, it's really hard to mentally adjust and get it right because there's so many different ways of taking it. And the apex is very, very difficult to hit as well. So basically what I'm saying, it's very, very technical. And this man, Stu McFadden, should be in a good spot to continue his winning run here because of the skill he's shown this season. But as you said, he wasn't quickest in practice. Looks like he is quickest so far, though, in the opening 10 minutes of qualifying.
Of course he is, because I mentioned he wasn't top of the times, and he's now banged in a 1:39.7, which was indeed quicker than the rest of the times we saw in practice session. But look how many cars we have got joining us. 19 that are coming out to play at Cheshire's finest, with some names we haven't seen before in the season. So really looking forward to how everybody does. So once again, Stu McFadden, picking up where he left off, has that gap, nearly 0.6 of a second to the good. But look at everyone behind the current second place car, Peter Plastow. There's barely a tenth between them, then a bit of a gap between Adam Barron and Chris Slater, and then again, very, very tiny gaps before you get down to Jack Trunwit in 13th. There's a half a second gap there, with a few at the back yet to set representative laps. There is our second place runner at the moment, Peter Plastow, in the 312 Aston Martin. Now, is any one car going to have a bit of an advantage here over anybody else? Oh, Chris Boland has just taken that second place spot, our current championship leader. We've had quite a few championship leaders in the certainly the last few rounds. It's been a different championship leader coming into the round each week almost. As we see Bradley Kropp and the BMW getting out of Peter Plastow's way and almost in the way of the oncoming Mercedes right behind. There's James King, 10th of the championship, still our lead BMW runner. Oh, great onboard shot. So you start to get an idea of the really undulating undulating nature of this circuit. It is very bumpy. It is very, very taxing at this. So hopefully he's actually getting ready for a lap, and well, it looks like he's about to park. Oh, there he goes. He has realised where the right foot is. So, John, take us for a lap.
Cool, so we're on board with James King, obviously the highest BMW in the championship standing, sitting P10 at the moment for the Royal Air Force. A beautiful sound of the BMW as well. As we enter a hot lap here, so you're going to head to the outside into turn 1. This is Old Hall, the corner I was talking about. A late apex, very difficult to spot your braking point and spot your turn in because it varies wildly from lap to lap. You want to just stay on the power flat out through this kink right, down towards Cascades, and again it's a late apex. You want to get the car in reasonably early to try and use the banking, but then get on the power as early as possible. Inside curb, a little bit of curb on the exit as well, and then you're powering down to the famous island bend. This is the one I was talking about. So easy to get this wrong and have a big accident, but you've got to just lift off a bit, get that curb on the inside, try not to unsettle the car, and make sure you don't run out wide because that wall on the right is very enticing. Then you've got this big banked hairpin at Shell Oils. 2 different lines in here. You can either hug the inside all the way around, or you can go for a more V-shaped line. Looks like James was going for the hug approach, which I always like. As we now head into the Britain chicane, keep it over to the right, flick it to the left over that curb, flick it to the right over this curb, and be on the power again as early as possible. Use the curb on the left, use the curb on the right. You always want to make sure you hit all 4 of those curbs. Just don't hit the first one too hard because it will throw you up in the air. Then you get the big run down towards the Knickerbrook chicane, hard on the brakes, left entry, get the curb on the right without hitting the tyre barrier, and then keep it over to the left. This is where we often see a lot of side-by-side running, and both cars will end up losing a good second or so, so look out for that during the race. This is where you need to get a good exit as well, because you've got this long stretch running up the hill, through Clay Hill in fact, down towards Water Tower, and again here, 2 possible lines into Druids. Either hug the left and stay towards there and then cut across, or you go in a little bit more aggressively in the middle of the road, just like James King was doing there, and then power out, double apex at Druids. Very, very interesting corner to drive, and it's just hugely satisfying when you get it right. Brake just as the turn-in board for Lodge at the final corner of the circuit, of course. Get it in, watch out for the banking, on the power, watch out for the oversteer. We'll probably see some spins there today, and then up over the hill, and just like that, pretty much taking my breath away, because the corners just don't stop here at Oulton Park. It is relentless, but that is your full lap, and it is just a special place to drive. The undulation, as you mentioned, makes this circuit interesting to the eye at least, but as a driver, it's just fascinating.
It's such a picturesque place. I actually have the honour of going to Oulton Park to commentate next weekend, and I'm so looking forward to it. It's my first time ever going to Oulton Park, and I cannot wait. I've driven many a virtual lap here. Well, I say I've been many a virtual lap here at Oulton Park many times. Those tyre bollards, they're no joke. They will absolutely destroy you if you are mere pixels too close to them. But you've got to cut close to them to get the best line through. And looking at the gaps between each car, any advantage you can gain, even if a tenth or two, can make a bit of a difference, can make quite a big difference indeed. As we were watching Adam Waters come to the end of this particular lap, as Darren Berris jumps up to 9th position, just a couple of tenths off the back of James King, who we were looking at before. Jack Kachewski in, again, the number 99 in the Mercedes. Now, some of the cars have had a bit of a livery change, so some cars may look a little bit different to how they've seen previously. The tail of that Merc getting a little bit uncomfortable coming through Lodge, which, again, I've done many a time. Now, as we come through, we were seeing Jack come through the first turn. We now jump to Jack Trenwitt as Ryan Abbott jumps up into 14th position. He had a few unfortunate moments during practice. This was a corner I always got wrong, which was Old Hall corner. I regularly got that one wrong and would wander off onto the dust. Now, I'd say you get away with the mistake. If you're going to make a mistake, that's probably the place where you're more likely to get away with it, because you do have grass on either side. However, it being grass can spit you across the circuit, but you have got some space in certain areas to make a mistake. Unlike certain other areas, i.e. Shell Oil's corner. Make a mistake there, you're either into the wall or you're blocking the track.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, one thing we often see, as you see now, Island Bend, this left-hander, drivers coming through there, and if they just get on the brakes too late for this Shell Oil's corner here, it's very easy to lock up a front tyre, and if there's a big train of cars ahead of you that are all holding each other up heading into the corner, it's very, very easy to get it all wrong and basically smash into them. So it's a tricky corner for the drivers. They're going to have to be careful. You see that Waters psychedelic livery on the background. I'm a big fan of that. This is a new driver, Etienne Gray. Don't believe we've seen Etienne so far this season, so always nice to see some new faces, and currently sitting in P15, just a tenth of a second off of Abbott's. Will this lap time be an improvement? It looks like he might actually be just about to start a lap, so we'll see how they get on. But yeah, you were talking about Old Hall Corner here. You do have that netted area on the exit, which you can use beyond the curb. That you might get a track limits incident point, but you don't really gain anything from it, so you've got that little bit of safety margin. But I'm not surprised you found it such a difficult corner, because there's not really a good reference point, and there's a lot of bumps there. So if you know, it feels like one of these corners where you either brake too early or brake too late. There's kind of no perfect point, because there's a bump in there that means that, you know, if you go just after it, it's going to throw you off. If you go just before it, you're cutting off too much speed. And then finding the perfect moment to turn in as well. It's so easy to run wide and miss your apex. You know, we see there Trunwitt slightly off the curb, but not bad at all. And then if you go in a bit too early, you've got to kind of correct yourself and pull back out of it again. It's just such a tricky corner to get right. And you can probably tell by my voice, you know, I've got so many memories of just spending, 100 laps trying to get that corner right, and you maybe get it right twice the whole section, and it's just infuriating. But once you find that rhythm, once you find that perfect point and you lock it in place, you can go on a run, and then suddenly you're nailing it for the next 15-20 laps.
Here was one of my favourite. I love Shell Oil's corner. Cascades as well is another really big favourite spot of mine. You just get that sweet spot, and it feels incredible to get that absolutely right. Now coming through Britain's, the slower of the two chicanes. Again, a little bit, the car can feel a little bit awkward trying to brake and turn at the same time. Now coming down the hill, got to get your braking point right. Well, you've got to get your braking point right everywhere, grant you. But yeah, if you do get it wrong down at his option, you do at least have an option of staying on some terra firma. It's the wrong track layout, but if you get it wrong there, you have somewhere to go. So we look at Jack Trunwitt just coming up the hill, up through Clay Hill, into Water Tower, now Druids, this double apex right-hander. I was one that kind of hugged that inside line rather than taking a wider entrance. I always found the wider entrance didn't really pay off too much because of how long that corner is. And then it is Lodge Corner. I've been many laps there. I really struggled to get the braking point right for Lodge. I was either too slow and hugged that inside line too much, or just flirted too much with the grass on the outside line. I really struggled to get that right. But that's part of the challenge of this circuit. There are some tracks that are easier to master. I mean, Brands Hatch Indy, you can argue, is an easier track because it's smaller. It only has a few turns. Oh, Jack flirting with the grass too much on the outside line. And that's a reshaping Mercedes.
Ouch. I've been through that gravel trap more than once, I have to say, but yeah, touching the grass on the way down there, not much you can do about it. That braking zone, we were talking about cascades, so bumpy as well. Even if you don't touch the grass, it's very, very easy to lose the rear and just get it a bit wrong because of the bumps and because of the banking as well. There's so many different ways to take the corner, and it's such a long corner too. But that way that we just saw, that's definitely not the way to ever take it. But better to learn it now at the end of qualifying than at the start of the next race. So it's absolutely fine for Trundle. I don't know if we're going to see anyone here going too much quicker. I think Barron may be on a lap. He's a 10th off Boland at the moment. These two have just been fighting it out all season. We saw more battles between those two for the victory last time out at Brands Hatch Indy. And then obviously McFadden, if you were to take away his 4 drop scores, he'd have an absolutely perfect season. But he can now basically no longer afford to drop any scores. The better way of describing it would be every single race from this point forward for Stu McFadden counts. So yes, he has a 100% record, but he's got absolutely no margin left for error. But it looks like he's going to continue where he's left off with a pole position that we didn't necessarily expect based on that practice session, did we, Chris? We thought he might be a little bit off, and he just pulls one out the bag when you... and there you go, 139.567. Talking about pulling things out the bag. McFadden increases the gap, and let's see what Barron can do as he comes towards the line. Will he improve? Will he go ahead of Boland on this final lap? He's going to come across the line now, and it doesn't look like that's the case. 140.568. So it is going to be Stu McFadden on pole position. I bet the odds weren't too good for that one if you were a betting person.
Yeah, 0.4 of a second is what separates him from from the predators that are chasing him, which is, as we've already said, as we've already seen, one mistake can cost you far more than that. It's all going to be down to surviving the first few laps, which is always the case in any race. But being these races are so short, that making any kind of mistake makes it so much more difficult to recover that time. And for those that haven't seen the format leading up to now, race number 2 will have a reverse grid element, which is decided in the gap between the two races by a random allocation of either 6 to 12 grid spots will be decided by that very wheel. We're not going to spin it yet. We'll spin it in between the two races. But that will decide how many grid positions we reverse. Now, it's thrown one end of the scale or the other. We've had mainly 12s. We did have a 6 last time out at Brands Hatch, which, being that it's a smaller circuit, some drivers were quite happy about. But there's more room to maneuver in Brands Hatch. It's quite wide for most of the circuit. That is not the case here at Oulton Park. The grid is now beginning to form. So, Stu McFadden, Chris Boland, so our current championship leader alongside the former championship leader on row 1, Adam Barron and Peter Plastow on row 2, with Stevens and Slater taking on row 3. Finch and King, row 4, Barris and Kropp are on row 5. Stu Eatock and Adam Waters on row 6, Jack Drumwitt and Ryan Abbott's on row 7. Our newcomer Gray and Steele on row 8, with Weston and Ijewski row 9. We're all the way back to row 10. 20 cars joining us for this one, with Eastwood and Fielding taking on the back row. Hi Peter. Yep, we see you. we know you're there, good sir. This is the bit I always hate. Well, as a commentator and as a driver, I hate this bit. Just waiting for the race to get going. What were your thoughts on a standing start, John?
I mean, I like it when you get on with it, but it is that 1 or 2 minutes where you're just hanging around. A formation lap's worse, though, because then you've got to do the whole thing. I think this is good, but this particular moment, just before it goes green, the anticipation builds. You're just trying not to stall the car. You're trying to decide the right moment to change it into gear and get the clutch in. There's so many things going through your mind, but as soon as that green flag drops, everything calms down and you focus on the race.
Right, the lights come on. We know this process. It is time to wind them up and let them go. And that's a stonking start from Chris Boland. Already the McLaren and McFadden tries to cover, and there's an outside Adam Barron trying to upset the party in the Porsche, but doesn't quite manage to do so. But he's already having a go at Chris Boland, is he? Having a look further back, has anybody had a bit of a moment? Can't quite see. Looks like everyone has managed to survive. Some position changes going on. Stu McFadden just and only just hanging on to that lead. He knew he didn't have a great start. Tried to cut Chris Boland off and then immediately got attacked by Adam Barron, but they remain where they are for the time being. Coming up towards Shell Oil's corner, and it is business as usual, it looks like, for Stu McFadden. Can he get into his rhythm? Is he going to be able to shake off his pursuers? Time will tell, but it looks like for the rest of the field, it's so far so good.
It is, and it's kind of what we've become accustomed to. Stu McFadden trying to break away at the front of the field, and Boland and Barron basically unable to separate them. Stevens has been really strong as well since coming into the championship a little later on, and he's sitting in a good position right now in 4th, so this battle is going to be very intriguing. There's Chris Slater, who's had a really good qualifying session and a good start up in P6, just fending off the other Aston Martin of Darren Berris as they head through Hislops and Knickerbrook, and then back up the hill. I mean, what a start it was by Boland. You know, he got such a good launch off the line. He had the overlap on McFadden as we see Trunwick tumbling to the back of the grid, so a problem there for Trunwick. And there you can see a rejoin, and it looks like Waters may have been involved in that as well, so a real shame for those two Mercedes. I wonder if we'll be able to see what happened there a bit later on, but yeah, Boland had his chance into turn 1. He couldn't quite be brave enough on the inside. He didn't know where to brake exactly, and McFadden, having the space on the outside, was able to just commit to the corner like he normally would, and that could spell the end of the race for victory. I know we're talking very early here, but we know the pace that McFadden's got, and that's what's going to make it so tough for these guys behind. I can guarantee you that Boland right now will be keeping one eye in the mirror, because we also know just how racy Adam Barron has been this season.
Somewhat, yes. And like you say, it does tend to be glued to the Aston Martin of Chris Boland, as the race will continue on. And oh, look at this. Now, this is a replay. Oh, so Adam Waters actually got helped around by the 14 Porsche, which is just an unfortunate nature of how the field bunches up on those early laps. Coming back live then to Shellow's corner. Stu McFadden has got himself a 7/10 gap. But look at the gap between Adam Barron and Peter Plastow. It's already a second between the Porsche and the next Aston down the road. But the Porsche of Adam Barron still glued to the tyre tracks of Chris Boland, keeping the Air Force ace, it's keeping him honest at this stage in the race. 15 minutes for this race, 15 minutes for the second race. It's very much all or nothing, do or die, but you have got to pick your time right. This is not an easy track to overtake on at the best of times, but it's proven pretty good so far for most of the field. As we now look a little bit further down the field, Scott Eastwood, he's the last of the Porsches there with the blue Merc right behind him. We've actually got 21 cars, I've just noticed, on the field. So again, I think this is the biggest field we've had all season.
I think it might well be. No Steve Ward this week, unfortunately, but good to see some new names and good to see so many of the drivers returning. There we see Fielding on the inside. He's under a lot of pressure right now for P17. That looks like... and he's actually gone off onto the grass there, his Fielding, so a bit of a mistake there, and he drops further down the order, down to 20th position. Meanwhile, and there's a Porsche off as well, just in front. Lost the back end on the way out of... I believe that was through Druids. And just lots of action happening in a small space of time there. Fielding loses out, but he wasn't the only one. And just try and regain his composure, get back into the rhythm and see if he can pick some of those places up. We did see just a lap ago Plastow making it down the inside on Tom Stevens heading through Cascades, and that's what created that gap between 3rd and 4th. But Plastow seems to have better pace than Stevens because he's driven away at this stage. And obviously Stevens now 6/10 behind him. Plastow 1.1 behind Barron at the moment, so there's a little bit of a breakaway for the top 3. Boland is staying with McFadden as well though, so we will keep an eye on the gaps there. In fact, there you can see it on screen right now. Boland still firmly got Stu McFadden in his sights. Barron, of course, clinging onto the back with that slipstream, and then Plastow not too far behind either. So there's not really, big gaps emerging just yet. Looks like Stevens may be the one who's struggling, but he's got a bit of a gap ahead of Slater, so he should be fairly comfortable in P5 for the time being. You can see there the Aston using all of the road and plenty more on the exit of Knickerbrook. The McLaren of all the cars probably the worst over the curbs, but the Aston Martin and the Porsche have a bit more stability in that sense. So that's where this circuit can come in handy for the Porsche and the Aston. Look at the Porsche there, very tight line through both parts of Druids, and you can see the bounce that was created from that. But I tell you what, it worked for Barron because he's actually closed in somehow on the back of Boland. So maybe that's his preferred line through there. I'm not quite sure.
You'd have felt that through your spine. Gosh, Ruth. I mean, these cars are so stiffly sprung that any kind of bump is always exaggerated. Fastest up of the race to Adam Barron on that one. Slipstream aided, no doubt. But yeah, that slipstream is helping Chris Boland stay right in contention with the McLaren for a fight for the race lead, or certainly a potential fight for the race lead as things continue on. McLaren's just stretching his legs a little bit, coming through Cascades, down Lakeside into Island Bend. That Porsche is just keeping Chris Boland honest. Chris would love to just concentrate on attacking Stu McFadden for that top spot, as Jackie Tuski has got into the pit lane. We've seen a few cars unfortunately have to visit the pits as is the nature of close racing, unfortunately. I've got a replay here. This is what happened to he touched the grass, round he went, and a bit of a not too big an impact. Well, I was just about to say not too big an impact before the words had even left my mouth. I got a big old punch in the face from the 14 Porsche, and that is what saw Jack Ajewski out. I think he's retired the car on that one. That was a big shame, but look at Adam Barron. He's very, very close now. That's more a mistake from Chris Boland, because suddenly there is a 1.2 second gap between Boland and McFadden. So that's just one simple mistake. I said it earlier on. One mistake is going to be so costly, because the pace is so close here at Oulton Park. Then the more these two fight, that's going to allow Peter Plastow and Tom Stevens to close in on them as well. So a potential five-way fight for the lead. But Stu McFadden, as always, has it in hand.
Let's see what the lap times are here, because that's going to be the crucial thing. All the top 5 did similar lap times on the last one, and there you go, McFadden managing to set fastest lap with a 40.0, and then it's a slower time for the 4 cars behind. So I do wonder if Stu was actually the one who made a slight mistake the lap before, and then was able to just kind of stretch his legs on that one. Boland obviously not the perfect lap, but not bad. And Barron obviously still right in there behind. So yeah, now we're seeing those small gaps just start to stretch. You can see that the McLaren was getting such good traction out of the corners, but the Aston towards the end of the straights was just beginning to close back in. Obviously now that gap is over a second, it's going to be a bit different, because there's no slipstream for Boland, so it really is going to cost him. Looks like Ajewski is fully out of the race now, finally working its way through the leaderboard. He's got the new teeth on that new paint scheme on his car, but they pretty much all got knocked out in that incident, didn't they? On the exit of Knickerbrook. He'll need a new paint job once again after that one. But there you can see that beautiful sight of GT cars racing around Oulton Park, heading down the hill. We're already halfway through this race. It's flown by, as it always does in this series. We now look back from Boland at the man in third, Adam Barron. Of course, these top 3 right now in this race actually represent, the leader in the championship of those that have scored in 6 out of the 10 rounds. You've also got the leader of the championship who's scored in every round, in Chris Boland, and then you've also got Barron, who's the leader out of the ones who've missed 2 rounds. So that's probably a bit complicated. But what I'm trying to say is these top 3 are probably the favourites when you take drop scores into account in this championship hunt. So it's fitting that we're seeing these title contenders emerge at the top in this race.
Yeah, absolutely. So consistency will always be king in these environments. So we've not always seen the same winners up top. Anytime Stu McFadden has raced, it has always been him so far, but that's not to say that he is unbeatable. He's just providing a big challenge to everybody else. We come back to James King in 9th position on the back of that gorgeous green Merc of John Finch. So he is currently battling for that 8th place, a little bit off the back of Darren Berris. But once again, James King proving that the BMW has got a fair amount of pace. He's constantly been the lead BMW, has James King. He's in 10th position in the championship at the moment. He has had he's missed 1 round. He missed out on, it was Silverstone, I believe. Yes, it was, where we didn't see the BMW, so he's had one of his pair of drop scores, you can argue. Does that put him in a better position? Well, who knows? Oh, that's a little bit uncomfortable, it looked like, coming through his laps there. But I'm looking at the tower, and suddenly that has changed again, because Stu McFadden is now, he's got the potential to be giving Chris Boland some slipstream here. Generally around about 0.8 of a second is my rule of thumb for where you want to be aiming for to get into the slipstream range. There is the Aston, now very focused on the McLaren ahead, or when he can see the McLaren ahead, I should say, because suddenly Adam Barron is now thrown into the clutches of Peter Plastow and Tom Stevens behind.
Yeah, I do wonder what's happened, if McFadden's made a mistake, if Boland's upped the pace, because obviously he's opened the gap up to Barron, so maybe a combination of factors there. Boland certainly looking racy. Let's see what the lap times are here for McFadden, because we'll see if the mistake, 140.9, so McFadden loses about 9/10 on that lap compared to his previous. Boland sets his fastest lap of the race, so I mean, Boland's proving he's got the pace on McFadden here. Well, he's got the pace to match McFadden, I should say, so it will come down to mistakes, and at this stage McFadden's going to be feeling the pressure. He's going to want to try and maintain his 100% record, but he clearly doesn't have that big advantage that he's had at certain points this season, and we know how confident Boland's been recently. He's been picking up the great results. Has Boland? He took a win, of course, last time out in the first race at Brands Hatch Indy, so he's in good form. He's right up there leading the championship, and he's showing why at the moment, because he's really putting the Scotsman under a lot of pressure. Now let's see if that will turn into anything with these last 4 minutes, whether Stu can maybe just calm himself down and eke that gap out again. But either way, Boland's going to be loving this chase.
That's the thing, is it's one thing being able to tell yourself, just get back into the rhythm, it's a difficult circuit to overtake on. You know there's somebody there. It's being able to manage that pressure, just put aside the fact that there is somebody hovering very large in your mirrors. That was one thing I couldn't do. If I had somebody behind me, I focused way too much on what they were doing, and I would end up putting myself into the wall or into the grass and giving them the position anyway. I was not good at keeping eyes forward and just managing more what I was doing. I paid too much attention to what my opponents behind were doing, as that's Adam Barron going for a bit of lawn mowing on the Aces of Druids, but manages to keep the Porsche pointing the right way. It's Stu McFadden rediscovering his rhythm a little bit. He's opened up another 10th on this lap, or certainly thereabouts. We'll see again as the cars come over the line, see what the lap times are. There we go, just over a 10th to the McLaren's favour. But Peter Plastow still trying his best to keep Adam Barron under pressure. The Porsche, he's pushing hard to close in that gap. Is he driving a little bit too hard? Well, we will see if that's going to come with an invoice. If he pays too much for that pace he's trying to exert. Here the Aston's been a little bit stronger than the McLaren, closing in a bit along Lakeside, now coming through Island Bend. But it's the rest of the lap where the McLaren just settles into its rhythm and keeps the Aston Martin at bay. But yeah, Stu McFadden, exactly as you say, John, must be feeling it this time around.
Yeah, the quality and consistency of the driving here in the top 5 is something to behold. I mean, all of them are lapping within a few tenths every single lap, and one little mistake just suddenly throws up a strange lap time. We're talking tenths here in a lap that's 1 minute 40 seconds long. So really, really impressed by the skill we're seeing at the front of the field. Also impressed by this battle we're seeing right now further down. King all over the back of Finch in the green Aston Martin. And yeah, King will be looking to try and stamp his authority as the top BMW driver in the series this season. He'll be looking to score some more big points. We've seen him around about this position plenty of times, but we've also seen him higher up as well earlier on in the season. So we know what James is capable of. And right now he will be thoroughly keeping his eyes forward on this Aston Martin. No need to look in any mirrors. Completely the opposite story, of course, for Finch just behind him. We cut back to the lead battle, however, and now Boland 4 tenths behind McFadden. So again, we'll keep an eye on the lap times to see if it was more of a bad one from McFadden or a good one from Boland. But I mean, as I say, when you're talking about 1 or 2 tenths, it doesn't need to be a bad lap. You just doesn't need to be quite as good as the previous, and all of a sudden they're right on you. And I tell you what, Boland with a 140.2, he's still setting times within a couple of tenths of the fastest lap of the race, and he's keeping the pressure on. Regardless of what happens here in this first race, I'm very excited about the second one with the reverse grid, because any of these 5, I think, have the pace to potentially win a race. Can Boland win this one, though?
Well, that is the big question. He's certainly keeping that McLaren honest. We're on our penultimate lap already here at Oulton Park, with just over a minute remaining from where they cross the line. I think they will just have time to do 2 more laps. We will see when they cross the line once more, but Chris Boland isn't interested in that. He will not want the checkered flag to come out this time. He'll need a couple of laps to try and dethrone that mighty McLaren. They come through Britons once again. Or has it gone too deep there as Boland? A little bit. The car just bouncing over the rumbles as they come heading down towards his up. You can see some of the back markers at the bottom of the shot. Whether they'll catch them before the checkered flag falls, we are about, well, I guess we'll see. It'll be close potentially. It rather depends if they beat the clock this time around. If they don't, if they have got another lap to do, they will most certainly catch traffic. Back to James King on the back of Peter Finch in that gorgeous 886 green. That's been my favourite livery all season long, the green Aston Martin. And there at the bottom of the shot, the next pair is Chris Slater and Darren Berris in their Astons, arguing for positions. As we'd love to see here, it's battles all over the place. The checkered flag is out. Did our lead pair beat the flag? No, they didn't. So your winner for race number 1 is by a very narrow margin in the end was Stu McFadden. Chris Boland comes home second. Adam Barron rounds out the podium. Peter Plastow 4th. Tom Stevens 5th. Chris Slater in 6th. Chased home by Darren Berris in 7th. And it is Finch, King, East, and Etok rounding out the top 10, with Crop, Abbott, Gray with their first race of the season. So respectable 13th. That's a decent midfield result for Etienne Gray. Very nicely done indeed. And a field that is this quick, that is nothing to scoff at whatsoever. With Western, Hardwick, Waters, Eastwood, rounding out more of the field. What a race. That was superbly done. Like you, John, that really does, like you were saying earlier, John, that really sets the stage for race 2.
Yeah, we saw, a good move there for P4 from Plastow on Stevens. And after that point, we didn't see any more changes of position for the top 5. But despite that, we were on the edge of our seat the whole time because these guys were so close. And there was always the threat of a move if there was to be one mistake. We saw just how close in the end Boland got to McFadden. It looked like he made a slight mistake, actually, into his lops and lost a bit of time to the leader. But then whatever happened to Stu, I don't know if he just was slow through Lodge Corner. But he seemed to struggle right at the end, and Boland got within a couple of tenths. So what it does do is it keeps Stu McFadden's 100% record going, and it also sets us up beautifully for race 2. I'm excited to see how the reverse grid is going to land here, because as we say, I definitely feel like the pace is there for all top 5 of our contenders. But I think it's time to spin the wheel, so let's see if we get another 12 or if we get something else.
There it goes. Right, so we are deciding, or the wheel is deciding, how many of our top 12 will be reversed. That looks decidedly like past 6, or certainly past 12. Past 6, it's going to be a 7. Well, we have an odd number finally in this season. So the top 7 positions are going to be reversed for race number 2. So who is that going to favour? Well, we will get the grid up for you shortly and run through who is going to be starting where, as we have our second place finisher in the waiting room. We have our third place finisher in the interview waiting room, and there we go. We now have all 3 of them. So let's bring in, I think, Adam Barron. Let's have a chat with our Porsche expert, shall we say. Adam Barron, are you with us?
Good evening, gents. How are you?
Oh, good. Well, we thoroughly enjoyed that. It looked... you were playing offensive to Chris and then defensive for a while. Talk us through that race from your perspective.
I think it's just the consistency. It's so hard to keep a clean line around here, and I was very wary of the amount of off tracks I was getting, so I had to rein it back in a bit just to make sure I didn't get any penalties. But I think the 2 ahead are just much faster on pace. It was good to see. We're a bit closer to Shu this round, so that's good to see. But other than that, yeah, I think it's just I finished where I expected to finish.
Oh, okay. Now, it was you and Chris Boland. Well, it's been you two most of the season, but particularly last time out at Brands Hatch, and you were able to fend off all the advances that Chris was firing at you. Of course, you were going to be in a position where he starts behind you once again. Now, Oulton Park seems to be much more difficult to overtake than the likes of Brands Hatch. It looks much bumpier, it looks much narrower from a spectator standpoint. What is it like from a driver standpoint to try and work your way through the field?
Yeah, it's like I said before, it's just the quickest line is off the track. That's why I was quickest in practice, because I managed to get a really stonking lap, but it wasn't exactly clean. And then in qualifying, it's so difficult to keep it onto the black stuff and not get the penalties. So it is difficult. It is difficult to overtake. But I think a lot of people are thinking about championship now. So maybe Chris and Stu, if there's a bit of a dodgy overtake, they might think second of it, because obviously the last thing they want is to get firing into a gravel trap. So I think there's a bit of long-term game starting to creep into people's minds there.
Excellent stuff. Any questions, John?
We did see you bouncing a few times through Druids. Was that your intentional racing line, just to hug those 2 curbs as tightly as you were doing, or was that just a slight misjudgment? Because, it was good to watch, but I wasn't sure if you were doing that deliberately, because I think you set your fastest lap of the race, having just bounced your way through the exit of Druids.
I'd like to say it's purely intentional, but it most likely wasn't. I'll put it down to my hotel internet connection, as you found out last week.
I did give you an in there. I did say it was your fastest lap of the race, so you could have claimed it, but, all credit for the honest answer.
Yeah, no, honesty's number 1.
I'd forgotten you were in a hotel this week, so absolutely fair play to you, Adam, for maintaining your consistent showing. I think you've only missed one round, haven't you? Or pair of races. You weren't with us in Knock Hill, if memory serves. So absolutely fair play to you. We very much look forward to seeing where you end up in race 2. Is it podium again, or is it going to be kind of hit and hope?
I daren't suggest what happens in the second race as how the season's gone. So what will be, will be.
We can't argue with that. Great stuff. Best of luck for race number 2. Thank you very much, Adam Barron.
Thank you, gents.
Always a pleasure, sir. Right, we've spoken to our third place podium sitter. Let's grab in his arch nemesis, the Aston Martin master. Chris Boland, are you with us?
Hey, how's it going, Chris?
Wow, did you put on a great show, sir. So close to the tail end of that McLaren. Was there an opportunity there, or was it just a tiny bit too quick?
No, there was more of an opportunity than I thought there would have been, judging by the free practice and the quali session. Stu had it nailed on for that, but I knew it was so important to stay in his draft because obviously it's fairly close between the top sort of 4 or 5 of us time-wise, and I thought as soon as I went out of Stu's draft that would have given Adam the chance, but no, I was right with him till the end, so yeah, we had some pace.
Yeah, very much looking forward to race 2. So as we were saying to Adam, this track is much narrower than some of the likes of Brands last time around. Very, very bumpy, very different track characteristic. How does the Aston suit the twists and turns of Oulton Park?
So I was sort of trying to evaluate it during the free practice and especially in the race then, and you noticed that the Porsche, especially Adam, was gaining on me through the more technical chicane type stuff. Anything faster, I could maybe put a couple of tenths between us, so it seems like it suits both cars but in very different areas, so over the course of a lap there's not really that much between us.
Awesome stuff. Very much looking forward to race number 2. Any questions, John?
I mean, this is a good chance for you to beat Stu for the first time. You guys are all starting in a good position, but we've seen how aggressive Stu's been in the opening lap to try and break his way through, and you've clearly got equal pace to him this weekend, or at least very, very close to that. So what are your thoughts going into turn 1, lap 1? Are you just going to send it, try and make as much ground up as possible, or are you going to try and play it a bit easier and stay out of trouble?
I think it's going to be an opportunity based, especially around, like you said, with this track. It's very narrow. There's not a million overtaking opportunities unless you really get good runs out of the previous corners. So yeah, I might just chance my luck and then see if anything falls my way.
We very much look forward to you fighting your way through the field again. So it's top 7 this time, so we actually have a different amount of grid slots to work through.
Nice.
And we look forward to it intensely. Thank you very much. Great result in race 1, and best of luck for race 2. Thank you very much, Chris Boland.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Chris.
Unfortunately, Stu has dropped out of the interview waiting box for some reason, so we won't get to speak to our race 1 victor.
Maybe too close to race 2, maybe.
It could well be. Time is it disappears so quickly in these races that race number 2 is already beckoning. So we wish our drivers luck. They'll be joining the session and making sure everything's working. The grid, of course, will be finalised with the top 7 being reversed. With a track that's so difficult to overtake on, this is, we say it every week, don't we? This is going to be very, very spicy, but this could prove to be something really quite special. People are going to have to be quite imaginative, certainly elbows out, which could prove interesting.
I really do think, with the 7 cars being reversed, it really does help those at the back of the top 5 because there's less chaos in front of them. If we had 12 cars being reversed, they'd have 7 other cars of maybe a little bit slower pace to try and get past. But because that top 5 were so closely matched, there's only a couple of cars for them to try and get through. And once they're actually clear, as you were saying, it's so difficult to overtake around here. So we could see whichever one of the 5 manages to get into the lead first, assuming one of them does, which might not be the case, of course. It's Darren Barris, by the way, who's going to be starting on pole position ahead of Chris Slater. But I think is it Chris or is it Craig? I've forgotten. I do apologise.
It's Chris.
It's Chris. Perfect. So yeah, that's going to be the front row, Barris and Slater. If one of the guys from behind can get through early, then it's going to be about how much time do the others lose. Are they going to be able to overtake if they finally do catch? So I really do think there's a fantastic opportunity. I know I've said this before, but for somebody else to win a race that Stu McFadden has entered. However, he's proven me wrong before. He could well prove me wrong again here. And I do think, if anyone was the quickest, it's probably Stu just by a fraction of a second. So it's definitely going to be exciting.
Oh, yes, very much so. So we're just waiting to get into the session, waiting for all the drivers to join us, and then the grid will be formed and we will get this second race underway. So a brief warm-up session for our drivers to make sure everything is working. There is Jackie Dudski. We didn't get much of a chance to see the teeth-bearing livery he now sports. But
they're back in quickly.
Yes, very much so. So I didn't realise teeth came with a quick-release mechanism in them. But there we go. Jack and Duty are doing things his own way. Quite a few of the cars back with us, and not in such a reshaping form as some of them unfortunately suffered in race 1. Get the second race going. It will be a rolling start for race number 2, which some drivers prefer. Some drivers do the standing start better off. You were mentioning earlier, John, that you were not so much a fan of a rolling start.
I don't know, I do enjoy a rolling start. It keeps things a bit clean. What I don't enjoy is the formation lap, because you're just itching to get going, aren't you? You know, you're desperate to get the race underway, and you've got to wait another few minutes and drive around slowly and warm your tyres and all that stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, the start itself, not a problem. That's absolutely fine. I think what we've seen this season as well, I've been expecting as there's a spin out the last corner. I said we'd see one tonight, and there it is. Thank you, Ben Weston, and also sorry that it was you that we caught on camera. But I just think, with rolling starts, it should have been a slightly more spread out, cleaner run into the first few corners, a bit more space for drivers to sort themselves out, and it's an advantage really to the cars further up the grid. But what we've seen, as this season has proven really, is that doesn't stop these drivers, getting their elbows out and getting stuck in, because I have to be honest, lap 1 of race 2 this season has just been chaos from day 1. And I expect more of the same, to be honest, here at Oulton Park. And it's nothing against the drivers. Everyone's just trying so hard to make up those positions. There's lots of drivers racing against unfamiliar rivals with different, paces and speed changes. So it's not the quickest guys at the top. And that does create drama. It creates pack racing. And that's why we've seen so much chaos so far this season. So as I say, don't be surprised if we see more of that in just a few minutes.
All right, our drivers are back in the session then. The grid will be formed and the rolling lap will begin very shortly. Yes, I beg your pardon, you did say it was a formation lap you were less keen on than a rolling start. That looks like where is that? That's on the way to Nickenburg.
That's the run up the hill, up Clay Hill. Yeah.
Oh, beg your pardon. Yes, it's on the way to Watertower, isn't it? So it is a part rolling start. Some of the more classic tracks have a full rolling lap. This one only has a half rolling lap, which I personally prefer. So there it is, Darren Berris and Chris Slater on the front row. The Astons ready to do battle up front. Then Stevens and Peter Plastow on row 2, Adam Barron and Chris Boland on row 3, with race 1 victor Stu McFadden joining Finch on row 4. King and Etok take on row 5 with Crop and Abbots row 6, Gray and Weston row 7, Hardwick and Waters on row 8. Eastwood and Tronwit row 9, with Steele and Fielding bringing up the back of the field. Right, now the nerves will be jangling a little bit as the pace car begins its slow roll. In these things, it must feel absolutely walking pace. Well, it's not far off it. I mean, we can't see a great deal because the blimp is deciding to go the wrong side of the trees. I mean, that's part of the beautiful scenery of Oulton Park, I grant you. It does make spectating it somewhat a little bit more tricky, but our drivers now, they won't have an opportunity to admire the scenery. They start their rolling lap towards Lodge for race number 2 of the night.
What's your prediction, Chris? Who's going to win this one? I'm actually going to go with Barron. Let's go Barron.
I'm not going to go the opposite. I'm going to go Plastow. Peter Plastow for this one. Usually whoever I nominate is binned, so hopefully I haven't updated courtesy. Oh yeah, I apologise in advance, Peter. Right, the pace car will pull away. There it goes, exiting stage left. The lights will come on. We are racing here at Oulton Park once again. Now, who is going to be bravest on the brakes and who has the best start? Leading down towards turn 1. You can see there Adam Barron looming large on that inside line. That's a little bit deep for Berris, but does manage to keep it pointing the right way. Boland has come up a position up into 4th. It looks fairly clean. Oh, just as those words leave my mouth, that is Tom Stevens. That is sent backwards into the wall. Flash of the lights there from, was that Adam Barron?
Yeah, I think it was an apologetic flash of the lights potentially. Just looked like he was going in with Stu McFadden right in his tail. And it didn't quite work out and it just caused chaos. Stevens, the innocent victim there, getting taken out by Barron. But it looked like, Barron didn't miss his braking point. I think it was more the contact, the defensive, attempt against Stu McFadden, and unfortunately ended in tears. Not the first time we've seen Barron involved in a lap 1 incident this season, and that one's really going to hurt because this was a good race, a good chance for those two to get a good result.
It is an Aston parade for the top 4 as we look at the replay. Oh, and that's Gray. That's the pinkish McLaren that's been spun around. I think that's Gray's car that was having trouble. But look at McFadden. He knows he needs to get on with it. He knows he can't just wait for the laps to go by. I mean, he's got a little bit of time that he can sit there and just let time tick by, but he doesn't want to do that. He knows that overtaking is difficult here, but he's got an absolute pack of Aston Martins to try and get past. There's Peter Plastow thinking about it. Outside line coming down towards Lodge. Slater feeling the need to defend as they come through and complete the lap, and that's an opportunity for Stu McFadden to get up and past Chris Boland, which he does manage to do that as fourth for the McLaren. Whoa, he hasn't quite got it done. Side by side coming up into Old Hall. Now it is job done for Stu McFadden, but as we've seen, Chris Boland has the pace to keep the McLaren in check. As we see Peter Plastow, as he trying to move on the inside line coming through Cascades. He thought about it, but was just about kept at bay. So that's McFadden up to fourth.
Yeah, Barris will be delighted with the way this race has started. He's got a 7/10 lead over Slater, demonstrating some good, decent pace at the moment, but obviously the real quick pace is going to show once these guys get through and stretch their legs, and you can see McFadden is desperate to do exactly that on the back of Pete Plastow. Real shame for Boland, he couldn't hold McFadden off for longer than he did. He had an opportunity, but McFadden showing that he's not just someone who can run away at the front, he's someone that can overtake as well. But he's got his work out here. It's a great exit though from the Britain's chicane, and before you know it, he could be finding his way up to second place here. He's on the outside now of Plastow, who was held up a little bit by Slater, as they now head down towards his lops, and McFadden's going to try the outside line. There's contact, and around goes McFadden. So it is going to be a different winner in race 2. Here's McFadden. He just went for a move. There was a bit of contact. We need to see a replay of what happened there, but it's going to be many drop positions and much drop time as well for the Scotsman. Big drama, and now it's anybody's race.
Well. That's... I did think it was a bit optimistic. There's just enough room to do it, but sadly, favouring for once abandoning Stu McFadden there, as he is now spun through. He's now down at the 10th position. We see Adam Barron getting the move on Chris Boland there. Let's see this again. So you've got the McLaren on the outside line. There's not enough room on that inside line. I kind of think that's Stu just cutting that little bit too much. There was nowhere really for Peter Plastow to go. He had no more room to his inside line. But that's nothing more than a racing incident, as Stu McFadden now outside the top 10.
Yeah, Plastow was still enough alongside to have warranted the space there, and I think it was just a misjudgment more than anything. McFadden didn't take the inside line, he still took the outside line, he just didn't leave enough for the nose of Plastow, and as he said, nothing Plastow could do. The result kind of resolved itself in a way because McFadden's mistake, and there's a big crash in the background. That's going to hurt. Don't know if that was that Stevens potentially having another incident, or potentially Stevens' teammate.
No,
it might have
Eastwood.
been Eastwood. Yeah. So big impact, wasn't it? I'm glad that's not real life.
Yeah, that was going to sting. No matter who you are, you were going to feel that one. As we continue to watch Barron and Boland, how many times have we seen these two duking it out? The Porsche once again ahead of the Aston Martin, but there's another 3 Astons ahead. Beres from Slater from Plastow. Darren Beres just over a second ahead of Chris Slater. But another replay here. Now this was the number 5 Porsche exiting what will be stage left. The slide started just before the exit of Cascades, and that looked like it slammed the wall pretty hard, and that is pretty much going to be the end of Eastwood's race, unless he somehow managed to avoid impact with the wall. We couldn't quite see from that camera angle, but I suspect he did introduce the side of his car to the Armco.
I think he more than introduced it in that particular occasion. Look at that fastest lap for Pete Plastow. He was one of the top 5 that I've been talking about, and he's showing that pace right now, right on the back of Slater. You can see them just in the distance here. Boland and Barron, of course, 2 of the others, and that's who we're on board with right now. Chris Boland, as he crawls all over the back of the Porsche ahead of him, Adam Barron. Of course, roles reversed from race 1. It was Boland ahead of Barron. Now it's Barron ahead of Boland. Both of these combinations we've seen plentiful times this season. Meanwhile, Pete Plastow has a little bit of a sneaky look on the inside of Slater, but you can't really do much into Island Bend unless you have the overlap, and Plastow's going to look to the outside now as they head into Shell Oils, while these two have a great view of it all happening. Boland won't know, or Barron I should say, won't know whether to look in his mirror or out of his windshield at the moment. I think he needs to keep his eyes forward though, because if there's an incident between these two ahead of them, if they hold each other up, he's going to be in prime position. And remember, a win is still at stake here. Darren Beres has got good pace out in front, he's got a gap at the moment, But if these guys can get past Slater, Beres will start to feel the pressure, and then it's an open game for anyone. So, this race has got so much to look forward to still. It's brewing away beautifully here.
Yeah, Slater adopting that defensive line coming through his laps as we have another replay here. Now that is our newcomer. I misidentified them in the McLaren earlier on. Just caught that apex a little bit too hard, unsettled the Aston coming through Druid. You know what's going to happen by this point. Nothing you can do. And that is a big old headbutt to the wall and a restyled Aston Martin. That is a great shame for Gray as we now cut back to this four-way fight for second. Slater, Plastow, Barron, and Boland. Well, Slater's got some breathing room. Plastow does not. He is mirrored full of Porsche at the moment. Oh, you were talking about committal. This circuit being full of committed corners. And committed was Adam Barron. He looked a little bit hesitant coming into Old Hall, but he's got his nose ahead, but he's got the outside line coming into Cascades. That gives the advantage back to Peter Plastow. Now, who's going to win out? This is where the Astons have been a little bit stronger, and Peter Plastow manages to power past the Porsche, but Chris Boland is right there to try and make the Porsche stay even worse. Can the Porsche outbrake the Aston into Shellow's corner? No, he can't. Oh, this is going to be a great fight. You alluded to this earlier, John. This is going to be an absolute slugfest right to the checkered flag.
Beres and Slater are loving this right now because these three are fighting tooth and nail for that third place position. They want to be the one who can take it to the lead too, but at this point I don't think they're gonna, because they're just going to spend more time fighting each other. The pace is so close between all of them. And I have to say, it looked like Barron went for the move down to the inside into Old Hall, but it was more of just a look to try and put off Pete Plastow, and it worked. Plastow missed his apex. The difficulty for Barron was that Plastow managed to keep his nose in there as they headed towards Cascades, and he couldn't take his inside line. And then we just saw the chaos there heading towards Island Bend. So well done for everyone for keeping it clean. That was great stuff. What it has done is basically resulted in the same as we saw a lap ago. It's Plastow from Barron, from Boland, but they're now a second, of course, behind Slater, and Barron using more of the circuit once again through Druids, try and stay away from the walls, and he's doing that just fine. But he's now got Boland all over his rear once again, so it's just relentless. And once again, can I just say a massive credit to everyone involved in this series, because the racing is superb, it's clean, it's exciting, and this is just another fine example of that. Barron looking to the inside as Boland stretched to the outside. It's going to be a wide run from Barron, and it's going to give Boland the overlap as they head down through the kink. They're still going to be side by side, but it's the inside for Barron. He's going to hang on for the moment, but if Boland can get an up and under here and use the power of the Aston Martin, he could have a look on the way to Island Bend. I don't think he's going to have enough though, Chris.
That's not going to stop him thinking about it, but no, he doesn't have the overlap there. Porsche's just going to be able to have enough to defend into Shell Oils once again. But these two, exactly as Chris was explaining earlier on, the Aston's stronger in the areas where the right foot can be deployed longer. The Porsche, it has that agility through the corners, of which there is a lovely balance of both in this circuit. But Beres is extending that lead enough, doesn't need to pull away, just needs to stay ahead of Chris Slater, who is still in the clutches of Plastow, who still isn't far away from Barron. Oh, is that a bit of a mistake from Slater? He looked a bit wrong-footed coming through his lobs and Knickerbrook. But no, Peter Plastow could not benefit from that. That's cost him a couple of seconds from Darren Beres, who has not won a race. We have seen Darren Beres on the podium in this series. So we have spoken to Darren before. That was back in Knock Hill, the second race of Knock Hill. We had Darren Beres on the podium. But I believe Chris Slater has not appeared on the podium. So this might be our first opportunity to speak to the number 32 Aston driver, but not if the three cars snapping at his heels have anything to say about it.
Yeah, it's been a good drive so far from Slater, and hopefully that continues, and I'm not just cursed him, because Plastow, as you say, all over the back of him, and it's Aston versus Aston, so no specific characteristic advantages for the cars at this stage. It's all about the defensive prowess of Slater, and he's had a tough season to this stage. He's shown glimpses of good pace, but he tended to make mistakes at the moments where it's counted when he's been in a good position. This is it now for Slater, though. It's time for redemption. He could get his first podium of the year, and he's only got 4 minutes to hang on, but it's the three racy cars behind as Barron had to back out of that one. He got so close to the back of Plastow. That, of course, checked everyone up, allowed Boland to look down the inside, and we still haven't somehow seen a proper change of position here. It's still status quo, but so much racing has happened, just proving, I guess, how difficult it can be to make a move here around Oulton Park if the pace is close. But Plastow's going to have another overlap here. This is where I expect to see cars running side by side. So will Plastow break late? Yes, he will. He's going to try and hold it to the outside, which becomes the inside line. But then you'll see, can he squeeze him out? Nope, because Slater can hang on in there. Then Slater has the inside line. This is the great side-by-side racing we often see here at Oulton Park. And all this holds them both up, and it gives Baron the run. This is going to be exciting as we head towards Druids. We're going to stay side by side all the way in. Looks like it's going to be Plastow with the advantage on the outside, but Slater keeps on committed down the inside. Plastow leaves him the room. They're still side by side, and Baron's now going to tuck in behind Plastow. He's going to have the outside line into Lodge Hall. Is he going to make it 3 wide? I don't think so. On the brakes, nice and late for the Astons. Baron's going to look at the exit, and it's Slater who gets away with it. He pushes Plastow wide, and through comes Baron. Finally, a change of positions. Excellent, excellent stuff from these guys.
Over half a lap side by side between the two Astons, but it's Peter Plastow that's lost out, and it looks like he's going to lose another one. Boland commits to the inside line coming in through Old Hall Corner. They're still side by side, but Boland lost that all crucial momentum, and that's allowed Peter Plastow back up into 4th. Actually, not too far back is James King and Bradley Kropp. The battle of the Beamers arguing for 6th position. So they're in a great scrap. There they are at the top of the shop. As again Adam Barron has a look at Slater. That blue Aston Martin is still giving a brilliant defensive masterclass, even flirting with the grass there on the way towards Shallow's Corner. But still Slater hanging on with everything he's got to that 2nd spot. This time it is the Porsche of Adam Barron staring into his mirrors.
Slater touching the grass in the place you least want to touch the grass anywhere in the world, I would argue. Exit of Island Bend, but he got away with it. Barron looking again down the outside. He's going to try and do what Plastow did in the last lap. Will these guys have learned a lesson? Obviously Slater's going to stay committed, but Barron this time is going to try and stay to the outside, but Slater blocks him off. Completely allowed to do that. Just good, harsh defensive driving. And I think, honestly, though, that might help Baron because it allows him to reset. He's not going to try and run side by side for too long and eventually lose out. Plastow he's actually letting Boland go there, so I wonder if there was a bit of fisticuffs between the two of them. Looked like a flash of the lights as well. So potentially Plastow making a mistake, causing Baron an issue, or Boland an issue, I should say, and then letting him go. But it's still Baron on the back of Slater. Darren Barris, meanwhile, is running away with this and looking like he is going to take his first win of the season, his 2nd podium, but his first win, and that gap's going to be big enough unless he makes a big mistake now. It's all about the battle for 2nd, and there goes Plastow into the pit, so it's a penalty. It's a drive-through penalty potentially for Plastow, or maybe he's low on fuel, I'm not sure. Baron under pressure from Boland. It's all kicking off, and there's contact. It pushes Boland out wide, and this gives Slater the breathing room. He might be able now to hang on to P2. More light flashing, more excitement. It's all kicking off.
Oh, the Beamers are side by side as well. That is Bradley Kropp and James King in their battle for now 5th position with Peter Plastow coming through the pits. It does look like it was a penalty with a drive-through for Peter Plastow. Yeah, the commentator's curse has struck again. As we now look at our race leader, reminding us on who the race leader is. We've barely seen him all race long. We are on our final lap. I did see the white flag waving as they came over the line. And Darren Barris just needs to stay consistent with. As odd as it is, sometimes when you're not under pressure, when you've got no one near you, it can actually be the easiest time to make a mistake because you lose that little bit of focus, or you can, I should say, lose that tiny bit of focus when you're not under pressure. When you've got someone that is bearing down on you, you focus that much more on what you're doing. Whereas Darren Barris hasn't put a foot wrong, did exactly what he needed to do when he needed to do it, and could well reap the rewards as we come through for the final time through Druids Corner for what could be Darren Barris' first win, Chris Slater's first podium. He's still got Adam Barris bearing down on him.
Yeah, Boland's had an issue as well. He's dropped far back. He's got Kropp all over the back of him, who's having a superb race in P5. Baron looks to the outside on Slater into the last corner on the last lap. Is he going to be able to hold it? I'll tell you what, Baron could have done it here in the final corner. It's Darren Barris that's going to take his first win of the season, and it is going to be Baron who sneaks through Lodge Corner and takes 2nd place. Superb stuff from all of these guys. Boland 4th, with Kropp and King doing a great job for BMW in 5th and 6th. Waters, McFadden, Stevens and Plastow after that drive-through. So there wasn't fisticuffs. He picked up a penalty and then let Boland go. He rounds out the top 10, and we're still seeing action, Chris, in the last corner. It's chaos, as always in race 2, but this has been superb.
Yeah, absolutely. So we didn't really get an opportunity to look further through our field. Once again, the top runners providing such an amazing show. But what a win for Darren Berris. He gets his first one of the season, and Chris Slater gets his first podium of the season as well. So he started the night 15th in the championship. It's been quite a rough season. It started fairly well for Chris Slater, but the last few rounds have not gone kindly for him. So a podium will really restore his confidence a bit and really reward that ever committed attitude, continuing to put the time in, put the effort in. When things don't go your way, it can be difficult to find that motivation. So Chris Slater doing a great job there, hanging on to a podium spot. But Adam Barron, what a great opportunistic move to steer away second on the last corner, or the penultimate corner of the final lap. Superb stuff. We will see if any of our top three drivers come and join us. It's not mandatory, but it is nice to have a chat with them. I imagine there'll be a few things said between some drivers, but all in all, from what we saw, it was some fantastic racing. Stu McFadden, his winning streak coming to an end. It did look like it was a little bit more his fault, but it's certainly a racing incident, nothing malicious there. But yeah, that proves that even he can make a mistake.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think, Stu will watch it back and he'll know himself that he's maybe just not quite left Plastow enough room. And it's not as if he's done something terrible here. It's just one of those things where you might think as a driver you're clear and you're not quite. And Plastow has an argument for a bit of space on the road. So I think he'll look back at it and realise, okay, I've made a mistake. I've missed out on a win, but it's not the end of the world. And it definitely isn't for McFadden. He needs these results. He needs the wins, because if he misses another round later in the season, for example, he's going to be a long way off in the standings, even with the drop scores. So he does need to keep winning if he wants to win the championship, and that's not going to help things too much. But I mean, a great opportunity for other drivers, and Berris took it with both hands. I mean, we've seen Berris since he came in at round 2 Knockhill. He's been right up there in terms of pace. Maybe I would say a tier 2 level. Not quite up there with the fastest of the grid, but he's able to fight for reverse grid race wins and stuff like that. He's been in amongst the top 5, so it's been super to see him kind of just take that race and run away with it at the front. No mistakes, and full credit goes to him. He's going to be very, very happy with that indeed.
Absolutely so, and our podium 3 have come to join us. So, in reverse order, let's have a chat with maiden podium scorer for the season, Chris Slater. Are you with us?
I am.
We have an opportunity to chat to you. So, welcome to the boss. Wow, you put up a superb defensive race there. Talk us through it.
I don't really like Oulton Park. I'm not very good at it compared to other circuits, because it's one that I've only ever driven once. But I seem to do all right in it on the sim. Didn't really have the outright pace. I think I was just over a second off the front runners. But I knew that once Darren and I had kind of got away from a bit of a tuttle behind us, then we might be able to make a break for it. But that was some fair defending to try and keep the guys behind.
Absolutely so. It was superb from what we can see. Really making people work for it. Now, I believe this is the first time we've had a chat to you. You're a member of our Royal Air Force. Give us a quick idea of what your 9 to 5 is, obviously, if you're allowed to do so.
Well, I mean, I'm sweltering because I forgot to open my window. Currently in Italy, working for NATO, but I look after the RF motor racing team and have been involved with sim stuff since the lockdown of 2020, really. But I like using the sim stuff to keep my hand in and keep active within the community, and it's obviously a good unwind and social thing as well.
Excellent stuff, and we're very much reaping the benefits of your continued work in the sim racing world. Awesome stuff. That was an amazing race. Well done to you. Any questions, John?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've seen you out and about on the real circuits as well, Chris, and the Blue 306. And I know you were heavily involved in starting all of this off originally with the sim racing. So how did this come about? Set up in, 2020? Was it COVID related? And what brought you guys to come up with this idea of involving esports with the series?
Well, there was a few of us that had done some sim racing a few years back previously, and the motor racing team for the Air Force had done a done some work in 2020 just before lockdown, and one of our partners, after lockdown started and the touring car championship got cancelled, one of our partners invited us to run in a touring car championship that was been done because of COVID, and me and another lad ran in it against some pretty tasty drivers from both the sim world and like World Touring Car race winners, British touring car drivers, and some BRDC rising stars and stuff. So that was pretty cool. And in our prime engagement that we do throughout the year is Royal International Air Tattoo at Fairford. And when that was cancelled in 2020, there was an idea to do some kind of virtual thing. So we strung together a race for a virtual RIAT, which was 40 minutes, I think, around Laguna Seca in Mazda MX-5s on baseline without anti-roll bars, so the understeered loads, and it kind of grew from there. So we've done MX-5s as a one make. We did TCR. We've done GT3 Cup with Cayman GT4, and then what else have we done? Toyotas. We did the GR86, and then onto GT4 multi-mark.
Oh, that is quite a repertoire. That's quite a varied range of cars. Absolutely superb stuff. Right, next time out for this series, we head out to Daytona for a night race. What are your thoughts heading out stateside?
Well, sadly, I won't make it because this time next week I will be 1,500 miles away from my rig and preparing for the first round of the Armed Forces Race Challenge, the physical one, which starts at Brands Hatch a week on Saturday.
Aha, I see. Well, best of luck for that, Chris, and obviously to the team that you'll be fielding. And again, we very much appreciate your service to the Air Force and, of course, to sim racing as a whole. Great stuff, great race, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you in 2 weeks' time for Snetterton. Until next time, thank you very much. Chris Slater.
Thanks very much.
Right, so let's drag in our second place finisher. Let us chat once more. Adam Barron, are you with us?
Hello, that was hectic, wasn't it?
Oh, wasn't it just? Talk us through it from your side.
So yeah, first lap, Stu tried an outrageous overtaking maneuver on the grass and then hit me at the back, which unfortunately speared me into Tom and took Tom out for the second race in a row, but wasn't my fault. And then yeah, just literally trying to catch up with the pack. Then I saw Stu got turned round, and then there was an epic fight between me, Pete, and Chris, and there's so many names really, but yeah, it was just an absolutely epic fight, and it all just sort of congealed into the last corner when I managed to take him on the outside and get second place. So extremely happy with that. But yeah, what a race.
Oh, what a race indeed. That final move. Were you kind of planning that in your mind leading up to it, or was it just simply a case of forcing the door open when you were there?
At the start of the lap, I didn't think I had a chance. He built up a good gap on me, and then I just kept reining him in. And I thought, right, well, I'm just going to basically plan out for the last corner because he was covering all his lines. So I made sure I got a good momentum out of the second to last corner. Went on the outside, and then just sort of let's see how this goes. And yeah, managed to keep enough grip to hold it and take him around the outside. So yeah, happy.
I imagine you are very, very strong contention then for your championship challenge. Any questions, John?
Yeah, I mean, we saw a bit of the incident on towards Cascades. I mean, I called it at the time. I hadn't seen a replay, so I wasn't sure if you were flashing lights because you were annoyed or you're apologising. But I noticed there was a bit of an incident with Stu on the way in. But how do you reset your head after something like that? You know, you've had a frustrating incident. Your blood's probably up. You know, your blood pressure's high. You're a bit frustrated. Do you use that as motivation to try and make your way forward, or do you just try and calm down? How does it work for you? Because I know different drivers have different emotions and different approaches when these things happen.
Yeah, you can either lose your head or just like focus. And as you saw in Lebanon, when I kept mecking up and having to come back to the field, I think I drive better when I'm angry. But I made myself even angrier because I went to flash the lights at him because I was a bit cross at him, and I hit the pit limiter instead.
Oh, we've all done it.
So then I flashed my lights in anger at him and myself. But yeah, it was still a really enjoyable race anyway. So, but yeah, it was good.
Awesome stuff. We head stateside for Daytona for a night race on next week's event. What are your thoughts?
I think that's going to be a bit more open, especially with the fixed setup and the backstraight and the drafting. I can tell you, I don't think anyone's going to disappear off in the distance. So yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll see how we go.
We look forward to it as much as you do. Once again, a great result, wonderful racing, and thoroughly enjoyed it from our side. Thank you very much, Adam Barron.
Thanks again, gents. Appreciate it.
Aye, great pleasure, good sir. Right, let's drag in our race 2 winner. Darren Berris, are you with us?
I am indeed.
Your maiden win, sir. I can feel the grin from here. Well done. That was comparatively quiet for you, but was there kind of that air of kind of waiting for people to catch up with you? Was there ever a moment where you were kind of worried about your position?
Yeah, the main worry for my position was me. So after my efforts last week of spinning from the lead at Brands Hatch, I was just like, I must not mess up. But no, the race, I really owe the race to Chris because of his defensive driving. So from race 1, I saw that Chris and I were very similarly paced, and when he made a mistake, I caught him, and vice versa. So I knew that with that small gap I gained right from the start, if I could at least maintain that and Chris kept the others at bay, I had a chance. And then as that gap crept out a bit, I thought, okay, this is looking promising, don't mess up. And then the final bit was when I could see that I think it was Pete someone got past Chris about halfway through, and I thought, and like you say, there was that sort of sense of inevitability of, well, maybe I've got the measure because my pace was better in the second race than the first. And when I'm looking at the fastest lap times, there's about half a second in it, and I was at that stage 2.5 seconds up the road, so I kind of had a string of hope in there. But when Chris Gain got back past again, I was just like, okay, this is definitely on. So it was good. It was good to watch from the back, but it was really nice just to have to concentrate and get it across the line.
Awesome stuff. We really didn't see an awful lot of you. There was so much going on behind. We just saw you doing exactly what you needed to do. It didn't look like you put a foot wrong all race. So brilliant stuff. Well done on that. Any questions, John?
Yeah. What are your championship aspirations? Because, I mean, you've had pretty good pace. I mean, we didn't see you in the first round, but since then, you've come across and you've been strong. And then, obviously, this race win as well is a big points haul. And I think you've probably got the pace to be picking up more of these really strong top 5 results throughout the rest of the season. So do you have your eyes on the championship, or are you going to be missing a few more rounds?
There's a chance I might miss one more round. Based on other events that are going on, but I think my plan is to do all of them. My plan the whole way along has just been to be consistent and try and be there. And I've found that over the last 6 or 8 months, my racing and iRacing I've just been that little bit more consistent. So I did the Road America 500 at the weekend and finished 5th in that, just through being like banging in consistently fast laps whilst people fell around me. So and that's always been the second race. Clearly, with the reverse grid, has provided some opportunities because I'm just not quite. Like you say, I'm at that sort of the back end of the top 5, kind of on pace most of the time. So yeah, it's there. It's an opportunity. It's there to be grasped if that opportunity comes around, and if these sort of races where I can either get a decent reverse grid position or benefit from other people's over eagerness, shall we call it, then yeah, there's always a possibility. So I will keep just banging away at it and just keep being relentless and hounding other people like I did Chris in the first race to either force them to make a mistake, but Chris is too wily for that, but just to keep people on their toes and hopefully just be there to pick up the pieces.
And grasp it, you certainly did. So we head stateside next week for Daytona. Thoughts on that one?
Done a lot of laps around Daytona, not in the GT4. So I did the Daytona the 24 hours. We did it as a team a couple of years ago. So no more way around the track. Got to do a little bit of practice in this car just to see with this fixed setup we're running, just to see where I'm at. And I think it's all about, again, not making mistakes in the infield and then just trying to be in someone's slipstream for the oval portions of it. So looking forward to it. And with it being a night race, it's that adds a slightly different dynamic to it as well.
We very much look forward to it as much as you do. Great stuff. Well done on your maiden win of the season. Thank you very much, Darren Barris.
Thank you.
And that is going to be it for tonight. Thank you very much to those that have been with us live or post-event. We very much enjoy your company. Thank you very much, John Munro, as always, for keeping me on the straight and narrow and joining me in the commentary box. It is always a great pleasure to be trackside with you once again, good sir.
Oh, very much appreciated. Likewise, big thanks to Steve behind the scenes as well for all of his work. And yeah, it'll be nice to go stateside next time out. Another away round, bit different to Lebanon, but should be a great Slipstream Fest. Plenty more to look forward to on that front. And yeah, we're getting to the business end of the season now, Chris. So drivers are really going to have to start thinking points. And I just look forward, as I will always do, to these Tuesday evening events because they throw up so much entertainment.
Likewise, very, very much looking forward to the American Classic. We hope you lovely people watching along will join us then. Until next time, thank you very much and good night!